everybody. Welcome to Engage Citizens. I am your host, Sharrie Ryan. Tonight, I have Kathy Cooper joining me. Hey, Kathy.
Hey,
Hey, she is running for Columbia County Clerk position. And so we get to chat tonight. First thing, just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, married, kids, that kind of stuff.
sure. So I am originally from Southern California. I was born and raised there. I've lived in a few different places. I lived in Massachusetts for 4 years for college. I lived in Texas for 4 years for graduate school. Back to California once in a while. Um, I lived in Norway for a year as an exchange student. I learned
Wow.
Norwegian. I lived in Switzerland for a year to improve my French, and I lived in Africa for 6 years doing a linguistic research project. Then back to
Wow.
California. Then I got married and moved up here. So I have lived in a number of different areas of the world and the States. And I just think that gives me a broad understanding of different people and cultures. And I really enjoy digging into a place and really learning, new things about people, et cetera, et cetera. Because I've kind of been a busy single woman. I don't have kids. I have
Okay.
some, relatives that have kids, but yeah, I'm married and moved here 5 years.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Well, what an adventurous person you are.
Yeah.
Living in all those places and then just throw in there Africa. Um, so what does a county clerk do? Can you tell us a little bit like some of their responsibilities and their duties and what that looks like?
Yeah. Excuse me. Clerk is basically fundamentally the keeper of important documents for the community. So you have, the licenses go through there, marriage, death, um, passports, financial things, dealing with tax, BAPTA, dealing with your house taxes. It's just a lot of the different mortgages, liens, loans, just a lot of the different documents. So, you need to know how to handle those documents properly, how to keep them properly, retrieve them properly, and all that kind of good stuff. Um, Also, elections are a big part. The clerk is the overseer and the person responsible for the elections. Now, in our county, we do hire election clerk specifically, and he basically is running the election, but the county clerk is really his boss. That person is over the election clerk, really telling him what to do, I suppose you could say.
Okay.
So you really need to know how to run the elections as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so do you guys work like together to
Oh,
do
yeah.
yeah, you guys work together and you oversee, like you said, like that would
Yeah.
be a boss, role of, and what is their election clerk?
Yeah. You can either call him the election clerk or the election supervisor.
Okay, okay. And can you tell us a little bit about the election process of what a county clerk does? Like, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the whole thing,
It's a lot.
it's a lot. Yeah,
An
it's a
overview, an
long process.
overview.
Well, we don't print the ballots. That's done by another place, and they're sent out by the mail system.
Okay.
But when they and we don't, and but we do have the counting machine. The tabulator.
Hmm.
So when the ballots come in, they're um, the signatures checked. They're scanned into the system saying that they've been received.
Hmm.
They're filed by precinct. And
Okay.
then later, like they're going to start next Wednesday, they start opening the envelopes and separating. I should have said the envelopes come in, the signatures checked, etc. Then they
Yeah.
start opening the envelopes, removing the ballots from the envelopes. And so all the envelopes get stacked in a certain place, and the ballots are checked to make sure that the machine will accept them, the counting machine. Then they basically wait until about the last day. Then they'll actually start running them through the counting machine and
Okay.
and tallying everything up. The ones that come to the drop boxes, they will go out and get um, not every day, which I think they need to change. Don
Mhm.
Clack told me they didn't go out every day if it's a light election or whatever. Towards the end, they will, but they need to be doing that every day no matter what.
Mhm.
And there also needs to be observation on those drop boxes at all times
Yeah.
by eyes, human eyes. Even if
Mm-hmm.
it's through a camera, there still need to be
Yeah.
eyes on those drop boxes. But anyway, they'll bring those ballots in regularly and process those in the same way as the one that come through the mail.
Okay. Okay. And you, like, as a county clerk, that they are the overseer of that process.
Yeah, just to make sure
Okay.
everything has the proper chain of custody, people are handling the ballots correctly when they're examining them. There's different rules for how you can make certain changes. If someone's like done an overmark or undermark, there's certain ways to fix that in some cases. Well, not undermark, you don't fix that, but there's an
Okay.
overmark. Sometimes you can tell, like the person circled in two ovals, but then they cross one out. Like they did that one by
Okay.
mistake or they changed their mind. Then you can kind of say, oh, well, he really meant to vote this other one. So you put a
Yeah.
little sticky white tape over there. That way the machine it will go through with no problem. The machine won't discount it because there's two marks on the ballot, stuff like that.
Okay. Okay. Oh, thank you so much for that, like, explanation, right, of how that works. I appreciate that. So what qualifications, like kind of background do you have that would qualify you for, that you feel that you would qualify for a county clerk position?
Well, I did work one election as a ballot handler, I guess, separate opening the ballot envelopes, separating the ballots, marking them or making adjustments to them. I did work one election doing that. So I know how that process goes, at least that part of it
Yeah.
well. Um, I have a background and I have a bachelor's degree in music. I
Hmm.
have a master's degree in linguistics. So
Okay.
I've got an academic background. I'm organized, I'm analytical, I can research, I have a lot of capabilities. I've also done a lot of office jobs. I've done, filing, I've done receptionist, admin assistant. Um, I did quality assurance work, which was where I was in charge of the paperwork for the government, with the
Okay.
ISO, International Standard Operating Procedures, the SOP, Standard Operating Procedures for the Navy. So I know how to handle government paperwork and stuff like that. You know, um, I've not seen anywhere that the clerk needs more than a high school diploma. So I
Okay.
don't think,
Hmm.
the things that I don't know, I obviously haven't been a county clerk before. But the things
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
don't know, I think I will be able to learn very quickly and
yeah,
be able to do the job, without a lot of struggle.
yeah, yeah.
So so it's just more I'm have a very analytical, organized brain, and I think that, you know, will
Very
help in
important.
yeah, in handling the documents and so forth. And looking at, but I also can see like the big picture. So I can like look at the whole election system and I can see where things need to be tweaked here and there to make it better and so forth.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. Oh my goodness. Did you work like in other countries, like when you were in Africa and stuff? Like, did you work in those kind of jobs there?
Well, in Africa, I was doing linguistic research.
Oh,
So I was
wow.
working
Okay.
on, I was with a team, but my job, I had a language helper come to my house. That means she was a lady who she spoke French and I spoke French, and I was
Mhm.
studying the language called Biali. And so she would come over and I would get word lists from her, and then I would test those word lists because I was looking for tones in the language too. So it was kind of an
Okay.
independent research project that I was doing there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. You just an amazing learner. What
Thank you.
so what do you want to, what are your kind of your visions and your goals if you were voted in as the Columbia County Clerk? What are some of the things that are your visions and goals for that position and what you would like to do?
Right. Well, customer service is always important. Making
Mm.
sure you are the people's servant. I see all government workers as the people's servants, and it should be a welcoming environment. It should be, the paperwork should be handled in the appropriate manner. People should feel welcome and feel like their needs are being taken care of, and so forth and so on. And then for the elections, I do have three specific goals. Um, I want accurate voter rolls. I want
Mhm.
hand counting vote, and I want a mechanism for citizens to be able to audit their vote. Right now,
Okay.
these three areas are lacking. We've done some survey canvassing work, and we found uh, for our sample data, we found a pretty high inaccuracy rate, a pretty high
Okay.
error rate on the voter roll, which was pretty
Okay.
astounding.
Oh, wow.
And we need to do a lot more work. I mean, this was just a start. Well, we've done 3 different surveys, and each time we found enough things to say, hey, we've got a problem here. We really need to look at this countywide and see what's going on.
Yeah.
Because we found a high error rate. People who aren't living where they're said to be living on the rule, where they're registered as living. So that could cause all kinds of problems. People could be getting the wrong ballot for their precinct if they're not living in that specific place,
Yeah.
or people may be out of the state. We just don't know. So that needs to be cleaned up. Secondly, I think hand counting is really way to go instead of using these voting tabulators. There's been a lot of controversy with these tabulators over the years, and it never really is totally resolved. And it's a partisan issue too. Whichever side loses kind of blames the machines. So you would just get rid of that by not using the machines. And also the clerks aren't the ones programming the machines. It's the tabulator company. For each election, all the ballots are different, and you have to reprogram the machine each time. And they get the memory card or the chip from the tabulator company and just stick it in, but they're not actually checking it. So my issue with that is it's not, the citizens aren't electing a tabulator company to count their election. They're electing a clerk. And if a clerk doesn't know how to program that machine to count, they really shouldn't be using it. And then the last thing is just citizen audits. There needs to be a way. There really isn't a way, an easy way right now for citizens to look at their own ballots and audit them and the envelopes. And there needs to be something developed to help that move forward.
Okay. Okay. You've got some big goals, some
Yeah.
things that you've really thought through and that you've experienced where you have gone out and seen some of the maybe the discrepancies that you are like, we need to fix this or work on this and check it out. Yeah. So do you have like any can you give us like an example of like a discrepancy? I think that, for me as myself, like as, just a regular citizen of Columbia County, what would be when somebody says like, what's a discrepancy in the voting, system? Could you give me an example of something that you found in Columbia County where you were like, okay, could this could actually be voter fraud, or this could actually be a voter discrepancy? What do you call it, and how does that, look?
Um, yeah, things that are just not really explainable, I guess is what I would call
Yeah.
them. I mean, I
Okay.
can't I can't use the FRAUD word because that's
Okay.
really something law enforcement has to determine. All I can say
Okay.
is this looks really weird. This doesn't make sense, you know
Okay.
what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I mean, a clear example would just be at the sheriff's office, and I hope he
Okay.
doesn't get mad at me for using this example, but we surveyed their office, which is also the jail. There were
Hmm.
25 people on the January 2021 voter roll
Okay.
listed at that address. 20 of them weren't even there anymore. So, right there's a huge error
Oh,
rate. There were
okay.
previous inmates, 14 previous inmates, 4 previous employees. I mean, and 4 unknowns, 2 previous employees and 4 unknown people. So right
Okay.
there, that's like, well, why are these people still registered at that place if they're no longer there? I mean, that's got to be updated. Um,
Okay.
and then of those people, a few of them voted. Some previous employees voted, some previous inmates voted, some current inmates voted, but one unknown person voted,
Oh,
completely unknown. There was no record of this person in their database as being an inmate or an employee or anything. They didn't know this person, yet somehow she had her address there, and somehow her ballot went there because both her addresses were there on the voter roll, both the mailing address and the living address, you know. And I told the sheriff, and he tried to look her up too, and he couldn't find that this person existed. There's a person with a similar name in Washington, but not the right age
mhm.
and not quite the right name. So that's a real anomaly. They don't know who she was.
Yeah.
She was.
Yeah.
Um, so what was that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Another, we did we looked for some addresses that were potentially non-existent because they weren't on the GIS system.
Okay.
They weren't on the United States Postal Service system. but yet they're on the voter roll as being an address. And we tried to find them, and I tried to find one. It was up in Rainier, I think, and wasn't there. We asked the house that was had the closest address, does this address exist? The guy's like, no. And
Mm,
then when I tried to look up the name of the person registered there, I couldn't find anything on her either. Like she didn't exist. So
mm-hmm,
that's, how do you, a person who there's no record of in any, public database,
mm-hmm.
and an address that you can't find, like
Yeah,
what is that all
yeah.
about? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that hard to find these things. You just have to know how to look for them. So it
Yeah.
really needs to be cleared up what's going on, if there's
Okay.
something going on, or why these things are happening.
Yeah. And you're just like, we need to look into these things.
Yeah, yeah.
We
I'm
need to
not
look into
claiming
this.
anything. I'm just saying we're finding this stuff and it needs to be
Yeah.
looked into, because we need
Yeah.
to know that our vote counts. And if we have these
Mm-hmm.
kind of funny votes that we can't explain, then how do we know our vote is, really counting?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Wow, thank you for sharing that information. And, I want to be able to share that with our community, with people and really just report and put out accurate information and that, we're sitting here having this conversation. This is coming from your mouth. This is coming from your experiences, and that people who are watching this, they can take this and see the context of what you're talking about and such. And that's the kind of reporting that I want to do. That's the kind of engagement that I want to have in our community. And so I really appreciate you sharing with us. And, I wish you good luck and I hope to talk to you soon. And we will, follow up with some of these things. And I really appreciate you taking your time to talk to us.
no problem, Sharrie. You are very easy
Yes.
to talk to. Thank you for
Oh, thanks. And I'm going
letting
to
me
post
on
your
your show.
Oh, yes. Oh my goodness, Kathy, for sure. And I'm going to post some of your information for people to get in touch with you and connect with you and on your website and on your Telegram. So everybody check that out, okay? Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.